Hey guys, good afternoon. My name is Yogesh Lulla. I'm the Vice President in PCCW Global for Mobility, Voice, and IoT. Before I start, I must say that it's a privilege to be standing in front of you. We might admit that it's a privilege for all of us to see each other face to face, back to civilization. Well, let's admit that time's not exciting anymore. It's not much fun to travel, because historically when we would travel, we would meet all the beautiful people around the world, hug them, greet them, give them some kisses, which we can't do anymore. Lately, meeting anybody is like entering a boxing ring. Everybody gives you a wrist. So I'm here to present on blockchain, IoT, and artificial intelligence. Let's deep dive into that. I think we in PCCW Global truly believe that blockchain, IoT, and AI truly has the ability of changing the definition of humanity. In other words, the data would be a key. Data would be a very strong tool for all of us. And this data, collected by the IoT devices, managed by the ledgers, what we call the blockchain, the distributed ledgers, governed by smart contracts, and settled by some kind of crypto assets. This is the key at the moment. Now, I do appreciate that all this data and technology has some kind of challenges. I'm going to walk you through some challenges during the course of my presentation. Before I go ahead, let's take a step back, guys. We do understand that in terms of the world suffering due to pandemics, no country is immune. I'm an amalgamation of Indonesian and Indian blood. So I come from two highly populated countries in the world. A study recently showed that developed countries are suffering a lot. That's probably because lack of resources. About 5 to 7% of Indians live outside India. And all these 5 to 7% Indians have the ability of contributing maybe $5 or $10 to their fellow citizens in India. Now, if all of these could have contributed, we could have spoken about $6 billion of investments or contributions to the underprivileged on a yearly basis. The question is, why don't we do that? Why doesn't anyone want to contribute towards the economy or the underprivileged? The right answer is trust. We, as humans, don't trust that whatever goes out of our pocket is delivered in the right cause. We don't trust that the middlemen are giving us full traceability of any transaction. What's a transaction? You might ask that. A transaction is when two parties come together to have a common goal, to have some kind of an outcome. Blockchain infuses this kind of a trust in any transaction, making it immutable. Now, historically, there would be banks or some kind of government organizations who would try to infuse some kind of trust in a transaction. Going forward, we don't want middlemen. We want technology. We want the digital transformation to infuse this kind of a trust. So blockchain eventually with IoT can validate, certify, and audit every transaction. Now, what do economists want? An economist wants a marketplace with minimum errors, with minimum kind of an investment towards redoing it. And IoT that we know of, IoT basically consists of small transactions, but millions, billions, and if I may, trillions of transactions eventually. Does the human brain have the ability to compute these transactions? The answer is no. I think you might agree that the human brain has reached a plateau, and eventually we need computational power to verify, network, and transact and settle the transactions. Also, any transaction of IoT, which is small in nature, but multiple in nature, we can't have physical resources to manage that. It won't make it viable for business if that does happen. I think blockchain eventually digitizes the real world attributes. Let me give you a real example. In terms of pacemaker that monitors the heart, now the doctor does not need to wait for the end of the month. He can get a real-time attribute of how the heart is functioning, of how they're performing. In terms of IV, an IV machine with sensors can eventually determine if the patient is in pain or the pain is reducing. Eventually, it can change the implementation of IV in human beings. In the airline industry, which we all well versed with, why do we need to wait for a black box? Why can't we get the attributes and the elements in real time? That's again the power of blockchain. IoT adds value to blockchain and vice versa. What does it mean? IoT, as I said, is millions and trillions of transactions. All these transactions have to be analyzed in real time. Who does that? Blockchain. At the same time, on the contrary, a blockchain technology cannot function unless it gets a huge amount of data input. This is why they both help each other. In terms of logistics, I think, let me give you an example of PCCW Global. In our company, we had a real customer. This customer was exporting avocados around the world. Eventually, he was suffering huge losses because at the last mile, the avocados were getting rejected because they were inedible. Whom does this exporter hold accountable for such a transaction? With IoT, it determines that when avocado needs to be exported, there has to be a specific temperature from end to end. Now, sitting in his office, he gets a real-time analysis of what is the temperature at any given point of time. That's again the magic of IoT. Blockchain enables trust in IoT by validating data life cycles. Blockchain enables trust by encrypting the data, making it immutable at any point of time, making sure there is no manual intervention, there is no human error while you input the data. As a system or a use case becomes more complex, the blockchain value increases. I must admit, it's not an easy journey. Any journey, any industrial revolution has never been easy. The first is the ecosystem complexity. Now, for blockchain to function, we need a panel to first understand who would be a part of this panel and who would not be there. Who would write the codes? Because you might admit that blockchain is a rigid technology. Once the codes are developed, you can't change it. It's immutable. The governance. Historically, we would use some kind of middle parties. Do we need governance over here? We don't. Who decides on the governance? This is why there are some institutions which would be important and play a key role in bringing the valid players on the same table. Now, technology scalability. This is probably the easiest to manage. With times going forward, we understand that scalability may not be an issue, but comes with a cost. Now, until 2020, there was an investment of $5 billion towards blockchain. By 25, we're talking about $40 billion of investments. Even though we might admit that this is a key to invest in technology, but financially, it's a huge hit. The last, the human flexibility. Now, the technology is bringing world closer, but let's admit that with the world facing geopolitical challenges, political challenges, a human flexibility is not the easiest to manage. So IoT and blockchain do bring a paradigm shift. It removes the input error, it manages data, provides trust, and decisions made by AI. What is AI? Artificial intelligence learns with trial and error mode. To define artificial intelligence, let me give an example of a child. When a child learns to walk, he doesn't need to learn physics to be able to stand on his feet. He gets data from his parents, from the surrounding, from each and every person who's walking. He gets up and tries to walk. He falls, he gets up again. So he's taking data from everybody This is exactly how an AI works. Eventually, the child starts running. We might admit that we as humans spend the first 5 years in teaching a child how to talk, and then we spend the entire life in asking the same child to keep quiet. So that's a human strategy. And eventually, a converged approach is vital. Now, this is about us organizations. In the past, there were errors. We were working in silos. There was no convergence. Manual processes, data misalignment. We were bound by an organization. In the current scenario, we are trying to automate internal and external processes. Industry standards. Now we need collaborations from the likes of C-band, GSMA, MEF, and MOBI. We need cloud connectivity. I've mentioned Console Connect over here. If you may know, Console Connect is an ecosystem that PCCW Global has created, which facilitates cloud-to-cloud and network-to-network integration in real time. And we are trying to add a layer of blockchain technology on top of it and smart contracts. We're trying to tokenize our existing inventory and partner with our colleagues over here with different organizations to come out with some kind of a strategy together. The future, of course, is lifecycle management, automation, and real-time IoT. Before I end, I want to say that we humans are adapting. We have never adapted so fast. Even the Google CEO says that the amount of investment and the amount of studies done in AI is more profound than electricity or fire. So let's give it to ourselves, guys. We are trying to change the world every day. We're trying to learn every day. So let's give a round of applause for ourselves to change the future. Thank you, guys.